It's true.
East Hampton Town Board, you are live.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the November 3rd regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Present.
Present.
Here.
Present.
Present. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today, we have 6 public hearings, which will be followed by a public portion where any member of the public may address the board on any topic. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And then the board will be offering resolutions for approval. Carol, would you please read the first public hearing notice and the disclosure? Oh, we have Mr. King. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yes.
I did my homework. I wasn't
And
trying
I did my homework. I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
In
It's not my,
person, Mr. Hugh
yes,
King,
it's not
our
my turn
town
to talk today. The town board will be reporting on 5 past town historians. And then after they're done, I'll just say one thing and then I'm out of here, okay? So we could start with Councilwoman Rogers and go right across without me having to say anything else. And I'll sit down and listen.
Thank you, Mr. King. And I was happy to do my report on Morton Pennypacker, who was actually born Frank Knox Morton Pennypacker in 1872 in Pennsylvania. Morton's uncle was the governor of Pennsylvania and had his own extensive private library as the family lived in Pennsylvania for a few hundred years. This is significant as it is supposed that this library was the inspiration for what came to be Morton's own vast collection of first-person documents. For a moment, I just want to talk about what those first-person documents were during that time period and how that's probably never going to happen again with our own written histories. Mostly what Morton collected was diaries, written diaries, and letters. During that time period, of course, the way to communicate with each other was to sit down and write a letter in handwriting. They weren't thrown out. They were usually saved for decades, if not hundreds of years, by families in trunks in the attic. And I don't know what will happen in today's world with those first-person accounts since emails are 5 minutes. So it is not known what that was the inspiration of his vast collection, as I said, first-person documents, which were handwritten letters, diaries, and hand-drawn maps of Long Island. It is not known exactly what prompted his travel to Long Island, but he was hired by the Osborne Calendar Company here on Long Island, and he created a lot of the graphics from this information that he collected for the months. In the early 1900s, he began writing about Long Island history, which at the time had been a disjointed mishmash of local histories of towns, such as the history of the town of Southampton, history of the town of East Hampton, or family collections, but not specific subjects such as Revolutionary War subjects or spy rings. He collected not only books, but hunted, as I said, for primary sources. And also he collected books and papers of Long Island authors who lived on Long Island, and any topic. Going through attics and barns, he had this large collection in his apartment in Kew Gardens, Queens. And you have to kind of think floor to ceiling. Today may be considered hoarding at some point, but it certainly was outgrowing its place in his apartment. His interest in the Culper spy ring, which is George Washington's spies, has a romantic story attached to it. He was looking into an attic to find anything he could and spotted an old trunk, opened it, it was full of letters, and he recognized the handwriting as the writing of Culper Jr., which was a code name back then. He then was able to match that handwriting of that person writing as Culper Jr. to Robert Townsend, and I think he was from Huntington, thus solving a true historic mystery. By the late 1920s, his apartment in Kew Gardens was alive and active with historians, teachers, librarians, and others interested in the history of Long Island. The only problem was that the research materials really started to outgrow the space, and he had to find another home for his collection. I'll get to that in a minute. In the 1930s, he published 2 books, Two Spies, and his second book was George Washington's Spies on Long Island. In fact, he is called, quote, the godfather of Turn, which is the AMC series, a history series about the Culper spy ring here on Long Island. From 1943 to 1954, he was historian of the town of East Hampton, and also a historian of Suffolk County. Even more important to us here in East Hampton than any of his other, and historians around the world, than any of his other accomplishments, East Hampton is where Morton Pennypacker deposited his vast history collection at the East Hampton Free Library, which we now call the Long Island Collection. He did this because he not only had collecting, but preservation in mind. He did not want his vast collection to be housed in a, quote, busy urban library where it'd be overused and reduce the lifespan of the materials. The East Hampton Library was selected because it was more than 100 miles to Manhattan, yet accessible to the serious scholar. He stayed to oversee the use of the collection in the library and to marry the head librarian, Eddie Hedges. Frank Knox Morgan Pennypacker was many, many things in his life, as many people were during that time. He was an author, a printer, a collector, a historian, and the godfather of AMC's Long Island drama, Turn. It was, after all, his diligent research and to his diligent promotion of the Culper spy ring in the 1930s, which actually led to the resurgence and new understanding of George Washington's spy ring on Long Island in New York City. However, for us here in East Hampton, it is great to see his impact, his passion or obsession, or both, for collecting first-person accounts of our history. All you have to do to see that in person is go over to the East Hampton Free Library and visit the Long Island Collection, Pride and Joy of the Library, or visit it online as it's just been digitized. Still to today, hundreds of professionals and amateur researchers utilize our Long Island collection each year to study our one-of-a-kind materials. Some examples include residents interested in making family genealogies, students, historians, journalists, documentary filmmakers, museum professionals, and it's ours to use as we like. And I thank Mr. King for giving me this assignment and Morton Pennypacker for depositing his information here in East Hampton.
So my assignment was for the historian Kenneth Hedges. And again, our own Hugh King is present because Kenneth Hedges was born on January 17th, which is my birthday, in 1892.
You were born a few years. Not the same year.
January 17th part. This is January 17th. He died on February 5th in 1957 at the age of 65. He is buried at the South End Cemetery in East Hampton. There's not a whole lot of information on Kenneth. But what I could find, I know that he is the son of William Hunting Hedges, who in later life became the keeper of the lighthouse at Hereford Inlet in Anglesey, New Jersey. William died, this is the father, died in New Jersey, but is also buried near his son at the South End Cemetery. Kenneth's mother was Julia Parsons Sherrill Hedges of East Hampton. Kenneth married Ethel Irene Haig in New York City. In the 1940 census, Ethel's occupation in East Hampton was listed as librarian. Kenneth and Ethel had 2 daughters, Irene and Margaret. Irene's occupation was listed as dietitian for a private club in the 1940s census, so one can imagine that she was probably working at Maidstone. Also in the 1940 census, Kenneth was listed as the store manager for a farming supply store. It did not list the name of the store. Kenneth was also listed in Jeanette Edwards' Rattray book, East Hampton History, published in 1953. He was, as Ms. Rattray said, he had been a long-term village trustee. This is the village of East Hampton, and for many years, and was currently, as of 1953, serving as the town assessor. In 1922, I did find with the help of Kate, thank you very much, in the East Hampton Star, that Kenneth was a member of a committee that was formed to help students interested in continuing their education. Kenneth was listed as one of the committee members representing the class of 1909. In an interview in 2020 in Dan's papers, Hugh King, who had just been appointed as the town historian, paid homage to his predecessors, including Kenneth Hedges. And that is the only reference I could find to him being the town historian. Kenneth Hedges' uncle was Samuel C. Hedges. He was the head of the East Hampton Historical Society for some time, and this association may have proved to be the spark that interested Kenneth in East Hampton history and becoming the town historian.
Very nice. So I was assigned Carlton Kelsey, and Carlton Kelsey was born in 1913 in Amagansett and passed away in 2005. He was the East Hampton town historian for 12 years and the director of the Amagansett Library from 1964 until 2000. As I said, he's born in Amagansett. He was fascinated with local history, antiques, and books, and even as a young child dreamed of becoming a librarian. Quote, I used to play librarian as a kid instead of doctor. I had a dater, a stamp pad, and cards, and I arranged alphabetically. His passion for local history was contagious. He loved old houses and told stories about their owners. And he was also an expert on those houses, how they were built, and became a consultant on early architecture. He collected traditions and folklores, myths and legends, and thousands of postcards and photographs relating to East Hampton. And one of I think the really remarkable aspects of him is that he amassed over 5,000 images that are extremely rare and depict East Hampton, Montauk, Amagansett, the whole area of town from very early times. There's a beautiful photograph of the Montauk Lighthouse taken prior to 1899, which really shows the lighthouse before any revetments were necessary, before it had eroded to a point where it was threatening the lighthouse. It's pretty spectacular. He gave over 300 of these photographs to the Montauk Library. There are many, many images, many more images in the Long Island collection of the East Hampton Library. And when you look at some of these photographs, it really brings back what East Hampton was like from years past. There are photographs of Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders recuperating after the Spanish-American War out in Montauk. Camp Wyckoff, Promised Land, the bunker fishing industry, turn of the last century, and the role that it played in the local economy, World War I. Montauk's role in World War I, and there are also negatives and cyanotypes that are documenting the 7 houses built by Stanford White out in Montauk, also known as the Seven Sisters. So he really contributed a great deal to our current understanding of what the town looked like and was like in times past. So I would encourage everyone to look into those collections that are still existing.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I had Richard Timothy Gilmartin. Richard Timothy Gilmartin's contributions as an avid historian and a popular sports fisherman, a spokesperson for the handicapped, and an engaged civic leader was legendary in Montauk and also East Hampton Township. He was born in 1904 to Thomas Daly Gilmartin and Emma Julia Moran. He grew up on a 20-acre farm in East Hampton, not far from Holy Trinity Church Cemetery, where he is buried. Upon graduation from Fordham University, Bonnet Tech before that, he became secretary to the Pearson Construction Corporation in Montauk, which also helped with Carl Fisher's buildings. In 1927, he married Winfred O'Brien. In 1930, he opened the Richard Gilmartin insurance agency specializing in commercial real estate, which he maintained until his death. It was located in an annex near the office tower built by the Carl Fisher Building. I found a little picture Matt might want to put online. What's fun about this is Mr. Gilmartin, and in the rear there of the picture, you'll see actually the Montauk Manor, and that dune line there is over by where the surf lodge is, as we all go by in that area
Yeah.
up Edgemere. Pretty neat. Thanks, Matt. So, Mr. Gilmartin served as East Hampton Town Clerk from 1931 to 1940, Commissioner of Welfare for Suffolk County from 1941 to 1949, and Supervisor in East Hampton Township from 1958 to 59. He also became East Hampton Town Historian in 1957 and served until that capacity until his death, unfortunately, in 1964. In 1944, unfortunately, an auto accident left him crippled. He spent 2 years rehabilitating in New York at the New York Institute for Crippled and Disabled and went on to become a founding trustee of President Eisenhower's Commission on the Handicapped and led the way for Skills Unlimited, which opened up in 1955 in Islip and worked hard to support the employment for the disabled. Mr. Gilmartin had a great passion for history. During his tenure as town clerk, he implemented preservation, indexing, and cataloging of leather-bound trustee journals from 1648 to 1955 and remained popular resource for researchers. Always interested in local history, in 1960, Mr. Gilmartin was the founder and the first president of the Montauk Historical Society. He called them local boys that formed the Explorers Club, and Mr. Gilmartin enjoyed driving them all around East Hampton Town and explaining local history and meeting local characters. Hugh, maybe you were there. Mr. Gilmartin initiated house tours of architecturally important buildings in Montauk and mentored history groups for young individuals. He belonged to many fraternal and professional organizations, Commissioner of the Montauk Fire Department, Chamber of Commerce, Lions Club, Elks Club. There's also a collection, Mr. Gilmartin's daughter, Barbara Sullivan, and son, Timothy Gilmartin, donated to the Montauk Library, as some of these other individuals also had, well over 1,000 items, detailing Montauk's military history, World War I, and biographical information of General Norman T. Turk, who Kirk Park is named after in Montauk. I recommend everyone going there. And at the new Montauk Library, it's very easy to see this history up on the wall and rolling indexes. It's a quite wonderful way that the Montauk Library has put this together. Lastly, from the Montauk Library's website, if Montauk ever produced a Renaissance man, it was Richard T. Gilmartin, an insurance businessman who entered politics and fought for people with disabilities. He loved history and surfcasting and shared his passion for both. Richard Gilmartin had started writing a history of Montauk when he died suddenly in 1964. The loss of Gilmartin's knowledge the loss of Gilmartin's knowledge base was like a mega computer crashing. That's why it was a joy to discover the 30 pages titled Montauk Through the Ages in the 1959 Chamber of Commerce Montauk Guide and Cookbook were authored by the surfcaster and historian himself. I welcome everyone to go find those and enjoy.
Okay, so my assignment was Nettie Cheryl Foster, and I was struggling to find some information about her. So prior to the first pitch of the World Series on Tuesday night, I called Hugh King up and said, Hugh, you got to help me here, direct me to where I should look. And the next morning I had this book, Revealing the Past, the historical works regarding East Hampton, New York of Norton Daniels, Cheryl Foster, Matt Griswold, and Hugh King, edited by Tom Toomey, illustrated by Ralph Carpentier. So as the introduction states, this book is a portal to East Hampton's past. It is a past these local historians reveal to us as you turn each page. As with any anthology, the volume is meant to be kept near and read from time to time when your interest turns to the history of the town of East Hampton. So Cheryl Foster was the East Hampton town historian from 2003 until her death in 2007. Cheryl grew up in East Hampton in the 1858 Greek Revival house lived in by her father, grandfather, and great-grandfather on property his ancestor bought in 1792 after serving in the Revolution. She was well acquainted with the people, places, and things related to early East Hampton. She spoke of passing the Dominie workshop and mill on her walk to school and of Main Street before high privet hedges when the soft Atlantic Ocean light permeated everywhere. As Cheryl noted, East Hampton remained relatively unchanged for 200 years, and in many ways, Cheryl was a link to those earlier times. Serving in the Women's Army Corps in World War II, Cheryl moved to Western New York to marry and raise a family, returning to East Hampton to pursue a master's degree in architectural history. Her 1977 thesis, Borders to Builders, The Beginnings of Resort Architecture in East Hampton, Long Island, 1870 to 1894, documented this era for the first time. Cheryl worked at Guildhall, curating the popular exhibition 1630 to 1976, Lifestyles of East Hampton, a bicentennial exhibition highlighting 15 intriguing residents over 300 years of the town's history, including a Montaukett, a Gardner, and a Dominie. As director of the first cataloging project for the East Hampton Historical Society, Cheryl developed a keen interest in life and times of Reverend Samuel Buell, 1716 to 1798, and research on East Hampton's strong commercial ties with Connecticut and New England. The emerging field of early Americanism led Cheryl to design Maidstone Revisited, a two-day history symposium held at Southampton College in 1992, presenting new research on early East Hampton by 12 noted historians, curators, and genealogists. Knowledgeable about genealogy, historic architecture, and settlement patterns, as well as Native American and African American traditions, Cheryl believed that information should be based on historic facts pulled from primary sources. Cheryl was adept at realizing the interconnection and interrelationships among diverse areas of knowledge, and she enjoyed sharing her research with other historians, students, and the public. A well-respected member of the Southampton Local History Study Group, for a decade, Cheryl authored Around the Green, a history column for the Independent newspaper. Also a modernist, Cheryl loved living in a passive solar house designed by her son Jonathan. Enthusiastic in her quest for true history, Cheryl's both charming and disarming originality is evident in her writings. An avid reader, Cheryl amassed an impressive collection of literature and memorabilia on early New England and East Hampton, which her daughter Mary gave to the East Hampton Library as the Cheryl Foster Early American Research Collection. Fellow historian Hugh King has said about Cheryl, she is a woman who can never be replaced. And Hugh, I have a question for you. Was she was she the first female historian for the town of East Hampton?
Yes, yes. But there are 8 other people I'm going to talk about. Thank you all for listening. And I want to thank the town board for doing all that research. And you see the book that Councilwoman Gonzalez had? There are 5 other books like that the town is going to get. And I promised Mrs. Hanson that it won't increase the budget. Okay. So thank you for doing that. Next time I will be talking about the 8 other people who extensively wrote about East Hampton history.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Hugh.
you.
I hope you're including yourself in that.
I'd like to know that history.
So that brings us up to public hearings. Carol, if you'd read the COVID disclosure and the first public hearing notice, please.
The public hearings will be held live and in person by the town board and will be available electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV, channel 22, and available for live stream on the LTV website. The public shall be permitted to appear in person, but may also provide comments on the matter being heard by calling 351-888-6331. Any person or party wishing to be heard with respect to the foregoing may do so in person by agent, by attorney, or by call in to the live stream, or by written comment addressed to the East Hampton Town Clerk, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton. Comments may be also submitted to the town clerk by email.
Thank you, Carol. We have one person signed up, but before we get started, I'd like to give Tom Rowland. You want to give us a brief issues of review?
Yes, you have to read the public hearing notice.
I'm sorry, getting ahead of myself.
Sometime in the year 2023, the town of East Hampton expects to receive approximately $120,000 in federal community development block grant funds. These funds may be used and have been previously used for a variety of projects that benefit low and moderate income persons, aid in the prevention and elimination of slums and blight, and/or meet a need having a particular urgency. Take notice that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing on November 3rd at 2 p.m. to consider citizens' views on local housing and community development needs to be met with the $120,000 in federal community development block grant funds expected in the year 2023. These funds may be used and have been previously used for a variety of projects to be selected by local officials. Examples of eligible activities include housing rehabilitation, elimination of physical barriers to the handicapped, public facilities and improvements, street improvements, public service activities, neighborhood improvement programs. The public service activities are limited to a maximum of 15% of the total grant, which is approximately $18,000. The amount of final funding is subject to conditional appropriation.
Thank you, Carol. Tom, if you'd like to give a brief overview. please.
Tom Rule, Director for Housing for Town. That notice pretty much covered everything, except the board will just hear from the public today. They will make the decision at the brown bag on the 15th, and it has to be submitted to Suffolk County by December 1st. And it is subject to, as the notice said, congressional allocation, which will happen later on. We don't even have last year's money yet. The cycle is a very long cycle, but this is the first major step in it. And we will hear from the public today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one person signed up to speak on this topic, Walter James Bloomberg.
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon, Walter.
council, and everybody who's in attendance. Thank you for coming. I'm on the board of directors of Wellbone HDFC, which is an affordable housing project for families. I'm the treasurer, and we are funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture is not just a cover for spies. They actually do provide subsidies for housing. And I think that started at the time of Richard Nixon. And I'm here today with Paula Agadello. I just like to associate a face with a name. She signed the letter. This is Paula. And this is about 4 handicapped apartments that we need to update. We are not in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and I am also on that board, the ADA board. We did start this project using our reserve fund, and right before COVID started, we had to shut everything down. And now it's time for us to get it done. We've also had a few things happen, and I was hoping that one of the family members could show up. But we're very proud of the fact that people come from wherever. And this particular family, I think, came from the Dominican Republic, the Collado family. And the children grew up there, and they become stellar citizens in the community. Evelyn is a police officer full-time in Riverhead. She couldn't get full-time out here, but she is living in Riverhead. And Edison is part owner of a business. And so it seems that people who even come from foreign countries and live there, they thrive, that next generation. The mother of that family was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So what we did is we moved her out of the regular apartment that they were in, and we put her in a handicapped apartment. But there are things that we need, like a chairlift that works, and we need to do additional upgrades that were when we had our 5-year. Just tell me again, ADA. I'm sorry, CNA, Comprehensive Needs Assessment Evaluation. there's additional work that we need to do. And in order to complete the work for those 4 handicapped apartments and do it correctly, we're looking for $80,000 of grant money, but anything would be greatly appreciated. And that would enable us to become fully ADA compliant, and to put in a new chairlift, which has to do with the way the apartments are laid out. But as Mrs. Kalala's condition, trying to think of a way to say it, it's just not going to get better. But she needs access to the upstairs. And so this is important to us personally. And you have the letters in front of you. I'm not going to read the letter. There's no reason to, but that's basically what we're here for today. And please call Whalebone if you need any additional information.
Great.
I'm finished.
Walter, thank you. Paolo, thank you for bringing this to our attention and making the request.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board on this topic? Yes, sir.
My name is Dan O'Shea, and I'm the Executive Director of Maureen's Haven Homeless Outreach. I'd like to first start and say thank you to the town of East Hampton for their ongoing support of Maureen's Haven and our mission to help those most in need, the homeless in our community. I'd like to briefly tell you a little bit more about what Maureen's Haven does. Some people may be familiar. A lot of people are familiar with our overnight winter shelter program that we do in coordination and partnership with houses of worship throughout the entire East End. And that is now in its 20th year. That is certainly a critical, life-saving program. That program is providing food, overnight shelter, a warm, safe place to eat. And we do that for a lot of the people who are typically ineligible for public services. They're reluctant to use the existing systems, or they're just simply, make a few dollars more than what Department of Social Services is willing to help them with. That, again, is a wonderful life-saving program, but really what makes things happen is the day-to-day stuff that happens in my day center in Riverhead. And at that day center is a place where individuals can get out of the heat and get out of the cold and get food and clothes and donations. But really it's access to case management, homeless support services, our social worker, which you guys generously helped offset that, her salary, is where we're able to connect people with more services that are either not out here on the East End, or they just need higher levels of care, or they need treatment programs, or they need to get into substance abuse programs or mental health counseling. So we spend a lot of our time and effort doing everything we can to not have people use my shelter. The goal is to not have these individuals sleeping on church floors. Unfortunately, my program starts on November 1st, 2 days ago, and of course I do have individuals utilizing this service. I'd like to briefly point out, I know a lot of times, especially in communities like this, people wonder, well, I don't really see much of a homeless problem out here. And the fact is that there is a homeless problem throughout the entire East End. I can tell you this year alone, we've responded to at least 15 individuals from the town of East Hampton. 3 of them have been senior citizens. And most of them have used my program, whether it be the shelter program or certainly case management services. So there really is a true need out there. And these are the people that we actually know of. I think certainly with the economy and the housing situation right now has just exacerbated everything completely. So the demand is certainly increasing. And to give you one other brief perspective on that, 2 years ago, in the first year of the pandemic, my overnight shelter program, we prepared about 4,300 beds, which was a pretty big number for us. Last year, the second year of the pandemic, because of the strain on the system, because of the increase in demands for services, we made 6,400 beds. We almost doubled the amount of beds made in 6 months. Again, going back to the increased demand, the exacerbated conditions from COVID and so on. So at this point, I would like to once again request support through the Community Development Block Grant to the town of East Hampton. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan.
I'll leave this.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board on this matter? Matt, do we have any callers on the line waiting to address us on this matter?
We have one caller on the line. I'm not sure if this is the matter they want to talk about, but I can unmute them. Caller 8340, you are unmuted.
I can unmute them. Caller 8340, you are unmuted. I can unmute them.
Hi.
Caller 8340, you are unmuted.
Hi.
You'll need to mute your phone in the back or whatever you're listening to the meeting on.
Hi, this is Sue Ellen O'Connor, and I'm just calling to thank you for doing the historical overview and you, King. And I'm sitting here with my mother, Norma Edwards, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. So thanks again, and we're looking forward to the update from you, King.
Great. Thanks, Sue, for calling in. Glad you enjoyed it. We certainly enjoy having you here and challenging us to come up with historical facts from the past.
It was great. My mother knew many of them in Carlton very well, and you were very accurate and was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. So no one else wishing to speak on this public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Carol, if you would please read the next public hearing notice.
Notice is hereby given that the preliminary budget of the town of East Hampton for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2023 has been completed and filed in the office of the town clerk of said town at Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, New York, where it is available for inspection by any interested person during the regular business hours of 9 to 4, exclusive of legal holidays. Further notice is given that the town board of the town of East Hampton will meet and review said preliminary budget and hold a public hearing thereon on Thursday, November 3rd at 2 p.m. or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard in favor or against any item or items therein contained. And further notice is hereby given pursuant to section 108 of the town law of the state of New York that the following are proposed yearly salaries of town officials of this town, to wit: supervisor, $129,882. 4 town council persons at $81,178, 2 town justices at $94,327, town clerk at $109,487, town superintendent of highways at $109,487, chair to the board of assessors at $104,184, and 2 town assessors at $94,777. Clerk to the town trustees, $26,552. 2 assistant clerks to the town trustees at $22,102 each, and 6 town trustees at $9,409 each.
Thank you, Carol. We have our budget director, Rebecca Hanson, here. We'll give a brief overview summary of the preliminary budget. Then we'll go to public comments if there are any.
Good afternoon. You all have before you the 2023 preliminary budget, which has a total spending of $90,355,049. This is a slightly less amount than was proposed in the tentative budget. It's actually $8,506 less than a tentative, but it does increase overall spending from the current fiscal year budget by 5.64% or $4.8 million. This budget does stay under the tax cap levy by $16,688. The tax rate inside villages will increase by 0.27%, and outside the villages, they will increase by less than 0.5%. So the tax impact on a home that currently has a market value of $1.5 million, taxes will increase by $2.34, and outside the village, the tax increase is proposed at $11.18. For a home that has a market value of $890,000, inside a village, the taxes will increase by $1.34, and those outside of a village will increase by $6.39. So there were a lot of changes that were reviewed at the board between the October 4th and the October 11th work session. All of those changes have been incorporated. What also has been added, which was not initially presented at the October 11th work session, but were added afterwards, was that a new full-time position for harbor master was added to Marine Patrol. Additional funding was added to the central print and mailing line, $60,000 in postage and $30,000 in public information. A change came yesterday that I emailed everyone about from our aquaculture department, who requested a change with regard to a promotional position. And in changing the requested promotion to a different title, which would be a bay management specialist, the cost actually comes out in favor of the town within a couple $100. So ideally, it will be cost neutral. I also just informed the board that there will be an additional request to increase the subcontractor line in the airport fund. After confirming that amount with Jim Brundage this afternoon, an additional $284,150 will be needed for general subcontractor contracts at the airport. That includes landscaping, the alarm system, those types of contracts to operate at the airport. So as of right now, looking at the revenues that are proposed for the airport, Jim and I will review, but we have initially thought that there are no additional expenses that we can currently reduce within the airport fund. So that being said, that increase in the $284,000 would be funded by appropriated unreserved surplus from the airport fund.
Thank you, Becky. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on the preliminary budget for 2023? Yes, David.
Good afternoon, David Buda from the Springs. It certainly comes as no surprise to anyone in these inflationary times that the budget year after year after year after year goes up, 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 never comes down. Your overall proposed tax increase based on the amount of money that needs to be raised from tax revenue is fairly modest, only close to 1%, depending whether you're in or outside of the village. So it's not a major impact on the taxpayer with respect to the town budget. But overall, and I appreciate a lot was done this year, or should I say for next year, to enhance the salaries of town workers, to improve retainage of the quality workers that you need, and to be able to hire new workers that you need. But ultimately, it's just getting really expensive, especially in one area, and that's health benefits. And I'm glad Becky is here because she can probably answer this question for me. If you look at the pie chart on overall townwide, all funds, employee benefits, health insurance far and away is the biggest slice of that pie. It's about $12 million. What I don't know is there are retiree health benefits that add up to additional $2.7 million, and I don't know whether that's included or not included in that $12 million figure, which it would be. Okay. So we have about 2.7 million dollars of retiree health benefits, and it's my understanding that legally you have more flexibility with respect to making changes in the required payments by or contributions by those retirees than you do in having to negotiate changes in your union contracts. When I was growing up, everyone, or as I was growing, everyone understood that working for a municipality, working for government meant that you got excellent benefits, excellent vacation schedule, and you had good retirement. But perhaps you wouldn't earn the same amount of money in your work life as far as the salary that you earn as compared to the private sector. Well, right now, what you're forced to do is do both. You're giving your employees the benefit of greatly increased salaries over many years, but you're retaining extremely luxurious contributions for paid lifetime medical expenses for retirees. Something has to give. I'm going to ask you again to try to look at whether or not your retiree medical expense benefits can be in any way made more efficient, reduced in expense, and that should be one way to perhaps save the taxpayers' money in the future. I have one other comment that I'd like to make, and that has to do with the fire protection district taxes. But in addition to those taxes that people pay to the towns, obviously we pay taxes to schools and fire districts. And what I noticed in reviewing the budget was that for the Northwest Fire Protection District and for the East Hampton Water Supply Fire Protection District, and I don't believe these have even come up for you for public hearing yet. They haven't actually been finalized, but in the budget, you're anticipating that each of those funds will have to go up in terms of property taxes about 30%, which is quite a substantial increase. And all the people who thought that creating a fire substation on Northwest Woods Road would somehow save them so much money on their home insurance may find out that they're just paying it out of a different pocket to a different person, paying it in taxes instead of saving it. What you save on your homeowner's insurance, you may have to pay back in terms of taxes. Why? Because I understand that the East Hampton Village Fire Department now needs to populate that fire substation with real trucks and actually be ready to fight fires out of that location, which is just a mile down the road from the main location. So people may not know it yet, but they certainly will know it in mid-December when they get their tax bills and they look at their costs for the fire protection district. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anyone else wish to address the town board on the budget? Matt, do we have any callers on the line?
I'm going to unmute caller 3078. Caller
Hello.
3078, you are on air.
Do you
Hello,
wish to
this
discuss?
is Jim Bennett from the union.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's kind of weird hearing two of you at the same time. I'm not supposed to be watching TV while working, but I didn't want to miss telling you guys that that we support this budget and the things that you've done for town employees, starting off in the right direction to help us out so we can afford to live here. We got more work to do, but it feels good to know that we can all work together for better things. So I appreciate it, and I wanted you to know the sentiment from the union, the members that I've spoken to, that we're excited about, getting a little more money in our paycheck and working towards better things in this upcoming negotiation year. But I wanted to pass on a thank you for including us. This isn't even a negotiated item at this time, and we'll take what we can get, and with appreciation.
Jim, thank you for calling. We certainly appreciate you and all of our wonderful town employees. You guys keep the town running, and we know the struggles and pressures that we're all under given this inflationary cycle and the cost of living out here, which is exponentially increased because of real estate values and other things. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and calling us. We appreciate you.
Well, thank you, and have a good day.
Be well. Any other callers on the line?
Yeah, we just had a new caller come in. Caller 5072, I'm going to unmute you. Caller 5072, you are on air.
Hi, how are you? My name is James Clark, and I'm calling to ask what's going on with the airport. We've heard so many different conflicting
yeah, James, if you could just stay on the line. I'm sorry to interrupt you, James, but if you could just stay on the line till we get to the public portion. We're conducting public hearings at this time, so the comments will go on the record. So if you could just hang on the line, we'll get to public portion as soon as the hearings are over. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments for this public hearing? 2023 preliminary budget?
Motion to close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Carol, if you'd read the third public hearing notice, please.
Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing in the Town Board Meeting Room, East Hampton Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, pursuant to Section 247 of the General Municipal Law on November 3rd at 2 p.m. or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard, to consider the following: the town's acquisition for preservation of open space and water quality with use of general municipal funds and/or other funding sources for property located at 66 East Lake Drive in Montauk, reputedly owned by Highland Meadows and consisting of approximately 18.8 acres of vacant land at a cost to the town of East Hampton not to exceed $4,250,000 plus reasonable survey, title, prorated tax, and recording charges. Said property being described on the Suffolk County tax map as 323-3.
Thank you, Carol. We have one person signed up. I'll take by show of hands anyone else who wants to speak. And if anybody's calling in, we'll take them as well. Richard Whalen.
Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, Richard Whalen. I have a letter I'm going to read into the record, and after that, I'll give copies to Carol and she can distribute them. The letter is from the Coalition for Hither Woods, a New York not-for-profit corporation. This letter has been approved by the board of directors of the organization, and I'm going to read it to you. Dear Supervisor Van Scoyoc and members of the town board, the Coalition for Hither Woods strongly opposes the action which is proposed today, which would change the funding source to be used in purchasing 18 plus acres of property on East Lake Drive, Montauk. This property is now owned by Highland Meadows, LLC. We know that the proposed change in funding is designed to advance a secretive town board plan, which is the construction of a centralized sewage treatment plant for the hamlet of Montauk. Although you have not yet informed the public of this fact, you, the town board, expect to swap the Highland Meadows property for Suffolk County parkland in Hither Woods. This land swap will enable the town to build a huge sewage treatment plant on 14 or more acres of forest in the eastern part of Hither Woods. The proposed Montauk sewage plant will be the most expensive public works project in the history of East Hampton Town, by far. You are going to try to portray this boondoggle as a clean water initiative. In fact, it is an environmental sellout of the first degree, which will sacrifice public parkland to the perceived business interests of downtown Montauk property owners. To be clear, the Coalition for Hither Woods supports the preservation of the Highland Meadows property. It is a worthwhile acquisition, which the town board previously authorized on June 21st, 2022, and for which community and on which to site a sewage treatment plant. There are other and better ways to improve groundwater and surface water quality on Montauk than a sewer system, if that is truly your objective. These alternatives would be disclosed in an honestly prepared and objective environmental impact statement. Unfortunately, the town board seems to have no interest in doing an environmental impact statement on the Montauk sewer project. Today's hearing notice describes the Highland Meadows purchase as a type 2 action under SEQRA, even though you plan to swap Highland Meadows for county parkland, which you will then destroy. This disdain and disregard for SEQRA permeates the hidden drive for a Montauk sewer district. You still have time and opportunity to change the course you are on. You can seek better environmental alternatives for Montauk. Today, however, the Coalition for Hither Woods urges you to acquire and preserve the Highland Meadows property using CPF funds as was originally intended. Sincerely, Richard Whalen, authorized representative for the Coalition for Hither Woods. I'm aware that you do have a resolution draft for later today. I don't think we're going to stay around to see how that goes, but we'll watch on LTV and we're curious to see what you do.
Thank you, Rick. Anyone else? Yeah, David.
David Buda from the Springs. I'm not involved in any Montauk environmental group, so I won't address that aspect of the issues. But I do want to point out that I noticed that you have, as part of the first resolution on today's agenda, 1307, a special warrant under the title of S.W. Meadow for $4,266,952.02. I assume that that is a warrant to enable you to close on the purchase of 66 East Lake Drive. And I also further suppose that you are intending to use bond anticipation funds, bond anticipation note, to do so, because the bond that you authorized just 2 days ago, obviously you won't be able to receive those funds in time if you're facing some kind of contract deadline to close on what was originally going to be a CPF project. So I would appreciate if someone would just, confirm that my assumptions and intuition is correct, that that's what you're doing. I don't know why this whole transaction, if Mr. Whalen is correct in his perspective and his information, that this is just, you have decided that you need this property for a bargaining chip or for a swap with land. I don't know if that's true or not. I have no inside information, but there's been such a lack of disclosure as to what you're doing. This is obviously an extraordinary transaction, changing your mind in midstream, giving up the possibility of using CPF funds, switching instead to town general taxpayer funds, using a bond, and then apparently now using a bond anticipation notes process to close on the property. And then what? Are you going to then, if Mr. Whalen's expected future for this property doesn't come to pass, are you then going to try to swap back and use CPF funds if this property cannot? I don't even know if that's possible legally.
It's not legally possible, and we have no intention of doing that.
Anyway, I said this, I think, on Tuesday when you had the bond before you. The town board, assuming that you have a plan, you must have a plan because this is extraordinary actions here. Tell the public what you're doing. Why not? Be forward with it. Explain it. Sell it. If it's the best thing since sliced cheese, tell everyone what you're anticipating doing. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board at this time? Matt, do we have any callers on the line?
There's no new callers on the line.
Entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Carol, if you read the fourth public hearing notice for today.
Please take notice that pursuant to Section 247 of the General Municipal Law of the State of New York and the provisions of the East Hampton Town Code, the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing in the Town Hall Meeting Room, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on November 3rd at 2 p.m. or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard concerning the following grant of aircraft noise easement to the Town of East Hampton. The grantor is Isaac Tucci as manager of the Brooklyn Timber LLC. It's an aircraft noise easement dated August 31st. The location is 23 4th Avenue in East Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 300, 182, 2, 5.1, and 7.1. And the reviewing agency is the planning board.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone wish to address the board on this matter? Yes. David?
David Buda from the Springs. This hearing is also a bit of an anomaly. It wasn't too long ago that you were asked to delete an airport noise easement from a property that was encumbered by it as being no longer necessary. This property, this acceptance of an airport noise easement for a property that's located on what is currently known as 4th Avenue, doing a little research, I found out that it's a 2010 subdivision that resulted in the planning board requiring that airport noise easement. And just like the need for airport noise easements may have changed over the course of 12 years, I'm absolutely flabbergasted that the planning board is now apparently resurrecting or allowing the owner applicant to resurrect a 12-year-old subdivision plan that received preliminary approval, but never was finalized. I understand you have no direct control over the planning board or the ZBA, but I've seen over time that the ZBA especially has been, and the ARB even, much more careful about granting extensions of time for very old projects. This is a very old project. Environmental standards have changed. I don't know if zoning changes, zoning codes have changed, whether that would affect this subdivision. But this acceptance request to accept a aircraft noise easement you should understand is in conjunction with a revitalization or reinstatement of a 12-year-old project. And I think you should do this carefully and make sure that you really understand what's going on here. Thank you.
Are you saying that the subdivision was never approved?
It was never finalized.
Never finalized.
It may have gotten preliminary subdivision approval, which is not final subdivision approval.
And this is a condition of approval, is it not?
This is probably one of many, and that
can only be granted by the town, the town board.
You can accept
the acceptance. That's not something the planning board does. The town board would have to accept that easement, as we do conservation and scenic easements and all sorts of other easements under.
Right. But what you are doing in accepting this apparently is enabling them to.
It's part of the process, yeah.
To revive a 12-year-old subdivision.
So are you suggesting that the town board would have grounds to not accept the easement as following the process and deny the applicant the rights that everyone is entitled to?
I think that just like a planning board or a ZBA or ARB should investigate the circumstances when someone comes before and asks for an extension of time.
So you should take that to the planning board.
That you should review it as well with a careful eye as to what you're facilitating, and obviously it's the town board's.
Facilitating the rights of people to pursue under, equal treatment under the law. That's what we're enabling. If you have issues with whether or not the subdivision should move forward, you should take those, as you said, we don't get involved with the planning board. You should take those concerns to them.
So in the
You're
town.
not wrong. You're not wrong, but you should just be doing this with your eyes open and
But
understand.
however, in the town
Don't
code
try to
for
remember to keep them
all
open.
the boards, there is no sunset provision. There is extensions of time. So the ZBA and the ARB would follow that same directive. And if you think that's wrong, I think it would be more proper in front of us to advocate for a code change rather than saying we should reach into any of those boards.
Well, I think there are expirations. The code has expirations for all approvals.
But you can
it
get an
does not
extension of
prevent
time.
people from asking for extensions.
Correct.
But there are certainly expirations on
Isn't it
building
the planning
permits,
board that
expirations on
would grant
approvals.
those extensions or not, right?
Yes.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
It's
Planning.
the planning board that would, give those extensions or not.
Yes, and apparently.
So again, it sounds like you should probably take your concerns to the planning board in this particular case.
Well, no one's coming to me to ask for permission to accept an easement, so thank you.
Thank you, David.
I think they've already done that, actually. They may have already granted the extension.
Okay, so we're just following the process under the law that they're entitled to. Is there any basis in your mind for us denying the acceptance of an easement in this case? Would we ever deny what would the grounds be?
I mean, a few weeks ago, you agreed to someone who had asked to eliminate a airport noise easement. So it's just mind-boggling that now you're accepting something that a few weeks ago you said was
Again, do
obsolete.
you think there's any grounds for us denying the request?
I think you should understand it before you accept it.
I completely understand it, but thank you. We have any other comments?
Motion to close?
Second.
And Matt, did we have any callers on the line? Did it
No
come
new
on?
callers, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Aye, pass and, all in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carried. We can move on to the fifth public hearing notice, please, Carol.
Take notice that the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing pursuant to Section 232 Urban Renewal, the Town Code of the Town of East Hampton, Section 232-170, modification of urban renewal plans in the Town Hall Meeting Room, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on November 3rd at 2 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider the following modification of urban renewal map EH6-2. It's URP 76 and 77 and EH 62, tax map number 300, 144.01, 184, map 119, map of Montauk Lawns, 79 Middle Highway in East Hampton. The UR map EH 6-2 for UR parcels 76 and 77 to relocate the lot line between the two parcels. A copy of the map depicting the proposed changes is available in the office of the town clerk during regular business hours of 9 to 4, Monday through Friday, exclusive of holidays. A copy of the proposed changes will also be available at the town's website.
Okay, is there anyone here to address the board on this? David Buddha. Getting your money's worth today, David.
David Buddha from the Springs. As you're aware, the planning board reviewed this matter and sent you a memo dated August 11th, which states in its final paragraph, the board, meaning the planning board, recommends that the town approve this application, but also recommends that the town board wait to formally approve the application until the planning board approves the subdivision waiver application that is currently in process with the planning department. It is very common to have a subdivision, and at the tail end of the subdivision, after all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, when everything is set in stone, that then the owner applicant comes to you and says, please conform the urban renewal map to what we have now gotten approval from the planning board. The planning board has not acted on that subdivision. Very curiously, the resolution that was prepared for you to schedule this hearing states the following physical language. The planning board has reviewed and proposed amendments to the plan and has recommended by memorandum dated August 11th, that's the one I just read, the approval of the application subject to the town planning board's approval of a subdivision waiver of the property, the need for which is presently under review. By whom? John?
By me.
By you.
Yeah,
Okay.
because this was, at least the claim is that these were merged. They were two separate tax map parcels years ago, and they were merged upon an application by the town in relation to the Wellwood subdivision. So we requested information from the county to see, in fact, if that was true or a mistake. We have not received any significant amount of information. We received a little bit of information from them. So initially, I think this is going to have to go through the planning board and get approval because there's certainly not enough clear information to show why the county did what they did, but they definitely.
The county, this property has been one tax map lot for at least 40 years.
I don't know if that's accurate.
It's true.
It's around this time well, you might be right. It's around the time that we did the Wellbone subdivision, which would have been in 1980. So you might be right.
And it was, there's no doubt in my mind based on the fact that it's a B zone, 20 square foot minimum lot, that this probably will be able to be subdivided, perhaps exactly as they propose. However, the urban renewal map modification process is not a substitute for a necessary subdivision granting by the planning board. You don't grant a subdivision by modifying the UR map. The county board of health services has mandated and has already recorded a restriction, a covenant, to require the extension of public water to facilitate this subdivision. Well, the planning board has to review water extensions. The planning board needs to know what's involved here. The planning board grants subdivision. They're the only ones that have the power to subdivide a lot that has been one lot, even if it's oversized, for at least 40 years. It's not appropriate for your town attorney to say, I am going to overrule the planning board. I'm going to overrule him, and I'm going to put this before the town board and schedule it,
Didn't say that.
and schedule it for a hearing when the town planning board, under advice of the planning department, said this requires a subdivision. It's a minor subdivision. It's not controversial, but the planning department looks at topographical maps, looks at water supply, looks at landscaping. Sometimes when you do a 2-lot subdivision, they find reason to specify a building envelope, sometimes not. This is a very simple subdivision. It's a minor subdivision, but it is a subdivision that should be considered and granted before you act. Thank you.
And I think that was a recommendation of the planning department, right?
It was,
Okay.
but here we
Thank you.
are. Without the planning board
We
having,
haven't made a determination yet.
well, that's
have we?
why I stood up to
And
remind
we've
you of
gotten
that.
that advice from our own town planning department. So unless we're doing something other than that, I don't know why you're bringing it up.
The planning department, the planning board and the planning department essentially said, this should go to the town board because we can't stop them. They've paid their $150 fee, but they shouldn't grant it until afterwards.
We understand
Haven't
that.
done
Thank
that.
you. We got the memo.
Yeah.
We didn't need you to tell us that, but thanks for doing it anyway.
Well, if I didn't say anything, I'm afraid that if you had gone ahead and pursued this matter because John was reviewing it, you might have done something that I could not have undone.
Oh, okay.
But John is reviewing a particular legal aspect that needs to be reviewed now since there was a question.
That will have to be resolved.
And if that had been resolved
Wait for
first,
advice of counsel on that before we act. So thank you. And again, if you don't think it's appropriate subdivision, you should go to the planning board.
no, it's probably an appropriate subdivision for this planning board to act upon.
Right.
First. And anyone who thinks, and there are council that think that they can skip the whole subdivision process by asking for an urban renewal map modification. That's not true, just not true.
Thank you, David. Appreciate your opinion as always. Do we have anyone else who wishes to address the board on this topic? Do we have any callers on the line, Matt?
There's no new callers.
Motion to close?
Second. Yes.
Okay, I believe that concludes our public hearings for today.
We need to vote.
Um,
There was a second, but we didn't vote.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry. Thanks, Kate. That brings us up to the public portion where any member of the public may address the town board on any matter. I believe we have a caller waiting who would like to talk about the airport. And again,
Oh, sorry.
just remind folks that this is public comment, so we're happy to hear from you about your concerns, but we don't generally debate topics.
Caller 5072, you are on air.
Hi, I'm just calling because all I hear all the time is.
I'm sorry, could you please
state a better environment.
I'm sorry, could you just please state your name for the record?
Yeah, James Clark.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So I'm calling. James Clark, can you hear me?
James Clark, thank you. Hi, James.
Yeah, so I'm calling because all we hear about is environment this, environment that. And then out of nowhere now, the airplanes are coming in at a higher rate than ever. The private jets are just nonstop. So what are we going to do in the future about this airport? Because it's gotten to a point now where it's just unlivable. The airplanes, the jets, everything, the helicopters is just absolutely insane at this point. You guys want to do everything that's environmentally friendly. Meanwhile, you allow these massive jets to fly over people's homes, fly over the ocean. They ruin the water supply. What is going to happen going forward? We did a bunch of public comment and nothing was addressed. We're 10 steps back from where we were a couple of years ago. So what will happen going forward?
Yeah, I don't know if you're aware of what's transpired lately, but the town board made a very sincere attempt to address airport noise and volume, hours of operation. We were sued in the process of trying to do that by a number of different litigants, and that has been winding its way through the courts. the state Supreme Court recently ruled that we cannot regulate the airport at this time. We have plans and we'll be addressing this issue at our next work session on November 5th. We will have a work session November 15th, where we will address what's transpired, what the town's options are about moving forward in order to alleviate the concerns that you raise here today. So I would encourage you, if you have the ability, to tune in to our work session 11 a.m. on November 15th to be able to be informed as to what's going on with the airport and what our intentions are moving forward. And if you're not able to watch it on LTV at that time, you can watch it on YouTube, or it will also be posted on both the town website under the town clerk section of the website after the meeting. And I know LTV will also have it available for on-demand viewing, as well as it'll be cycled through several times after the work session. And I appreciate your concerns. Can you just, if you don't mind, can you tell me what hamlet you live in, James?
I live in Waynescott.
Okay.
On town
Thank
line.
you. And
yeah,
understood. And what we know is that this past year there were more flights that occurred over Waynescott than the other hamlets. But the overall traffic actually was down about a third from the previous year's traffic. But I know that the increase of flights over Waynescott actually countered any decrease that would have been from the airport. So Waynescott bore the brunt of this season.
It's not about that. It's not about that anymore. This is about like the hypocrisy now, because you guys.
That's something the town board has worked to gain control over for more than a decade. And because of the FAA grant assurances that precluded us from doing so. And now these lawsuits are currently preventing us from doing so. But we are intending to persevere until we gain control over our town-owned airport and can regulate it in a way that the community supports. I appreciate you taking the time to call us today.
But my biggest concern is you keep saying regulate. Do you not realize these people don't care about regulating? They will do anything they possibly can to keep this airport open, and you're still willing to compromise over these things. If you're still allowing jets to fly overhead after this is just a sick joke at this point.
So what do you suggest the town board does? Do you have a solution for us?
Close down the entire airport.
Okay, and we've been told by a judge we can't do that. Do you understand that the judge has ruled?
If you're still compromising with people after you gain control, if you gain control, then that is absolutely absurd, and it just goes to show where you guys lie in regards to who you're serving. And that is my final comment for that.
Okay, James, thanks for taking the time to call.
Bit of misinformation there.
Anyone else wish to address the board in public comment? Yes, sir. And then the gentleman in the back. Hello, Jim.
My name is Jim Lubetkin. I live in Amagansett. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I'm going to make this short and sweet, and just to thank you for what I understand you're in the process of doing, and that is allocating parking spaces for veterans. Veterans Day is a week from tomorrow, and we'd love to pass this on to our fellow veterans, so I want to thank you for that. And also, we are more than happy as VFW Post 550 to pay for any costs associated with signage or any stickers you may have in the future. I know you're not going to accept it, but
no, we're not.
No, we're totally not.
It's a generous offer, but we'll pay for it
But our
ourselves.
heart is there.
Thank you. I
and
know it is.
Very non-controversial.
That's one thing we know about veterans is that their heart is there.
Thank you.
For
So
us-
anyway, thank
for us
you
all.
again on
Thank
behalf
you.
of veterans.
I do think the signs, though, that were presented by Councilman Lees are very patriotic and worthy of being a veteran's parking space.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jim.
Take care.
Appreciate you taking
Thanks,
the time
Jim.
to come in, and thank you for your service. Yes, sir, in the back.
Yes, good afternoon, Town Board. My name is Joe Karpinski. I would like to go over some issues currently going on Bayview Avenue. You were going to have a meeting on parcel 27 that was then amended to be parcel 25. Just so you are aware, that is the homeowner that blocks our road currently. I am completely dismayed that you guys would even have the conscience to have that meeting for that homeowner who still blocks our road. You just had Rick Whalen here, at which he would have stayed, that he lambasted you over stuff. He sits on 3 of your committees and writes you guys legislations. He represents that homeowner for both those properties. On the other side is Tarbert and Lester. They represent the other homeowner. And now you have Mr. Lester as your special prosecutor made on August 18th. In the middle of the road, our road is blocked by geocubes. There's not only a one first row, there's a second row. That is First Coastal who did that work. That is your company that works for you, that you have given money during this period of our road being blocked. Aaron Chatunian, who is the owner of First Coastal, he is your liaison to FIMPA consultant, the man who brought us Dirtbag Beach. And after the April 19th ZBA meeting, when the homeowner of 117 was asked, who's the owner of the road? And he answered, it's all of ours. And you guys also have the Steele document from 1992, July 17th, 1992. You have your preservation in front. This is our road. I am completely disgusted that it has not been open. Ann Glennon sent letters in April of 2019 to both of the homeowners and their agents. Once again, the next year, in July of 2020, she sent a letter to First Coastal, 30 days to remove these bags or then face legal action. We then, as homeowners, after a couple of years of trying to pool our money together, we then served the town of East Hampton letters of enforcement to enforce your town code. This has gone on for far too long. I'm not trying to debate you on this. I am just pointing out everybody works for you that's here, and yet our road remains blocked. You guys should be enforcing. You just said the other week, I heard it at the meeting, lay the hammer down. Everything is on your side. I've tried to point it out to you guys. I'm thankful that you guys are buying 96, and that goes through officially today. But even that, the road has now been widened and graded into the areas, of concern, so close to wetlands. I've already contacted the DEC, and they should be contacting the town shortly over this, as they would have been required to get a permit for it. The planning board has told me I can make comments for the November 9th meeting on that, which I will be sending to them. If you wish, I will send them to you too, but I'm sure they will come to you either way. At the end of the day, I just don't understand how this can go on for how many years. And I've already been told with the widening and grading from your town consulting engineer, well, these poor people have been waiting since March. We've waited 5 years for our rights to be restored.
Yeah.
So I would like that to happen immediately.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming in and bringing this up. I will say that when you say, I'm surprised the town board is even considering this matter, it's our job and our duty to consider anything that is proposed. They have a right to propose it. That doesn't ensure an outcome, certainly. And I would encourage you, and I know that I will be here December 15th, interested, absolutely. And I appreciate you being here for that.
But I also want to say, it's all after the fact. Everything they filed with you is after the fact, that we've already filed letters of enforcement with the town of East Hampton. And it's been too long. And certainly I commend David Lease last August, on August 10th, bringing up site remediation bonds. I know he was in my emails in July of 2020 when I had brought that to the forefront, and I thanked the ZBA who took it up first. And of course, they just said some member of the public, but it was me who had that for them. And I commend you once again. But you also brought up Councilwoman Overby. You said on August 10th, you said, is it your understanding that a road's blocked? Yeah. You guys are the jurisdiction over this road. So you have the full authority to do that. Those two homeowners, well, at least one of the homeowners, has modifications already with the DEC. And I can go back to when Aaron Chatunian already wrote all the way back on June 11th of 2019. He said, yes, we should modify the plans to run it down the property lines. I can prove it beyond belief through town records that these people do not own to the midline. And even thanks to Assemblyman Fred Thiel, who went out of his way to get an answer from the Assistant Regional Director of the DEC. These people purported to own the midline. Whether they purport or not, it doesn't matter. My family was there before urban renewal. I have an old deed. I could tell you I own to the midline. Why can't I stop anyone? That's called urban renewal. I cannot stop anyone from going up and down that road. No one can block us. You can do that through chapters 91 for beaches and parks, which I sent you guys public comments on back for August 4th. I do not see any posted minutes online yet for that meeting from that agenda, that it's still not there to this date. So okay. I guess really without going on I could go on for hours over this, but the only other thing I would ask.
I understand, your position, and I empathize with it. And I think the entire board can say that we appreciate what's going on there and we would like to see this resolved.
Thank you. I would also say, if I can just throw it out there, as I try feverishly, as it's been passed down to me, Nat Peak Harbor is an eminent, we need to take immediate action there. And what we would like to see as 300 plus residents down there is for 1947 to become what is now, which would be what is open today would be shut, and what is closed to be open. I had brought
East Inlet open again.
Yes, that does need to be done. Whether we would have multiple, both of them be open, that would be a further and more costly dredge. Just a couple of years ago, I had brought Mark Woolley from Lee Zeldin's office to the trustees to offer them help. That did not go anywhere, as 2 years ago, they told me we were a couple of years away from dredging, and now we're at this point, and I was told once again this December we're years away. So I would hope that the town can make that an area of concern and urgency to be taken care of as the cost becomes more great with inflation as we go forward.
I'm not sure that the harbor could really sustain 2 inlets because it reduces flow.
Yes, it would have to be
having
constantly
the
dredged.
greatest amount of flow possible in and out in one location is probably better. And as you probably know, having lived down there forever, there's deeper water off the East Channel, which means that cooler water comes in on a flood tide.
Yes.
Which is, an important aspect to scallops. It's important aspects to eelgrass. It's keeping the water cooler. It's a relatively shallow bay.
One of our biggest concerns.
Absolutely.
But even with that, let's talk about those lands at the end of our road that you have that are underwater that you still pay taxes on today. If you dredge that inlet and you put it all back properly and correctly, you'll have at least 150 yards back out in front of our road once again.
And I think it's important for people to understand that the process for opening that inlet again is long and arduous.
It is, trust me. I've been trying myself for
years. And it's going to be very expensive. I do think that there's now funds that we will be getting that could help subsidize that in the form of the $29 million that is coming in from Orsted. We earmark that for projects such as that would be eligible for that funding. So, having a plan in place, working with the DC is going to take, as you might guess,
it's a long process. But even with that, even with the PEM project that was put in next to Mulford Lane, that's going to be in excess of $1 million. And I'm still upset that nobody turned to Mr. Anderson of TED Talk fames and said, hey, $1 million, that would go quite a far way. Because when we were trying to do this at this point, longer than 18 months ago, it was only $2 million. Now the trustees tell me this should be a $5 million project.
And we've been trying to dredge Northwest Creek for at least 10 years, where the shoal across and the sandbar is blocking the flushing for the upper part of that creek. So it's a long and arduous process. I appreciate you bringing those topics up too, because they are.
And I hope after the election, whoever is in office, we can try to get them
Right.
moving quickly to help us again. So,
Right.
Thank you very much.
Joe,
Have a good day.
Thanks
I'll
for
see you
coming
soon.
in. We do appreciate you taking
Thank
the
you.
time to be here. Public comment. Anybody else? Do we have anybody on the phone lines, Matt?
Yeah, we have one caller. Caller 4221. I'm unmuting you now. Caller
Thank you, Matt.
4221. You're on.
Jamie.
Yep.
Thank you. It's Jane Meering in Amagansett. Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor, town board members. I am calling in today to put a card in your suggestion box. My recommendation relates specifically to apartments being included as part of new commercial development projects proposed around our town, units that developers are referring to as affordable or workforce or staff housing. In particular, I hope the town can ensure that these units, when they are created, they will remain affordable in perpetuity and benefit as many of our residents in need as possible. As you may be aware, I watch a lot of planning, ZBA, and ARB meetings, and this issue seems to be coming up more frequently these days. I'm not naming any specific pending projects in front of you today because I don't even want to create the appearance of asking for a reach-in to applications, because I know that is a no-no. Instead, I'm highlighting just the broader pattern I've observed watching a series of commercial site plan reviews where developers propose to add one or a few apartments on top of new commercial space. In addition to necessary special permits, most of these projects require multiple variances for things like coverage, pyramid setbacks, insufficient parking. And these variances are not specifically to facilitate affordable housing, but instead are triggered by oversized scale of the project relative to site constraints. In addition, applicants in almost all these cases seem to hope to avail themselves of the benefit of the town's affordable sanitary credits to overcome limits that might otherwise constrain their desires. So to take off my sunny disposition bonnet and put on my cynical cap for a moment, I will observe to you that frequently I find commercial applicants' claims of providing, quote, affordable housing benefits to the town to be questionable. Their narratives are often incomplete and inconsistent with respect to how the spaces will be used, what they mean by affordable, what rents will they charge, who will decide, and how will it be decided who occupies the units. Will the units be only for their employees or go into a lottery for a broader pool? Will they be used year-round or transient or only transient seasonal occupancy? And most importantly, what assurances will they give that these new units remain in the town's affordable housing inventory on a sustained basis? I understand that Chapter 250 of the Code covers affordable housing credit program, its principles, and to some degree addresses requisite covenants and restrictions. I also know 255.5 governs special permit standards related to residential units within commercial. There are probably other sections I'm not aware of. But my ask to you today is that as part of your already very significant all hands on housing, perhaps the planning department and board might initiate a review of procedures, criteria, definitions, and code governing affordable or workforce housing that is intertwined with commercial development to see if it needs additional clarity or beefing up. To conclude, I do indeed believe these types of units will be an important incremental source of affordable housing capacity for the town, but they do need to align truly with community needs, expectations, and the town's important priorities. So it's essential robust and clear standards underlie their creation and guide more effectively the various boards' vetting and approval of processes. Recently, I have heard some of the boards asking that there is more clarity and more specificity. So that's all on that. I know I've run the clock. Can I just take 30 seconds to mention one other thing, if I may? I just want to say that I value the in-depth. Thank you. I really value the in-depth discussion you all had on Tuesday's work session regarding 395 Panago site plan, and in particular your discussion around appropriate house size, accessory structures, the recommendation for electrification and solar, preserving mature trees. They all really set a very important example for development overall in East Hampton. And I really do think you furthered that goal where residents will enjoy the homes, build some equity, and ensuring that those houses remain in affordable inventory for a very long time to come. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you for calling, Jane. Appreciate your comments today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Matt, do we have any other callers on the line?
No, there's no other callers on the line, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay, at this point, we'll move on to resolutions. Kathy, you have resolutions?
I do, starting with Resolution 2022-1307. It's approval of the warrant. Claims total $2,187,104.29. The utility warrant totals $60,953.07. And the special warrant totals $4,266,952.02.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
1308 is to appoint Deputy Town Clerk Dorina Castrati at an annual salary of $55,000 for a 35-hour work week effective November 14th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
1309 is to increase hours for full-time employee Warren King, a cashier in the town clerk's office. Warren's weekly work schedule will be increased to 40 hours from 35 at no change in hourly rate or budget account effective November 7th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
1310 is a budget modification for the East Hampton Volunteer Ocean Rescue. We're moving $3,050 from fuel, motor vehicle, boat fuel, and uniforms to other equipment.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Passed and carried.
1311 is approval of a special event permit for the dock run on various town roads in Montauk for Sunday, November 13th from 11:30 to 12:30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
I'd like to offer Resolution 2022-1312. This is for Hallbrook, to schedule a public hearing for the CPF project plan addition. Tax map of the property is 300-103-8-3.4. It is located at 106 Red Dirt Road in Springs, approximately 2 acres of land. This public hearing will be held on the 17th of November at 11 a.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1313 is Hallbrook to schedule a public hearing for acquisition and amend the 2022 Management and Stewardship Plan. Purported owner is Carolyn Hallbrook, location 106 Red Dirt Road in Springs, tax map 300-103-8-3.4. Proposed purchase price is $1.5 million. We will have this public hearing on November 17th, 2022 at 11 a.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1314 is Langley authorize a CPF project plan addition. This is, I apologize. This is the property's owner is Patricia E. Langley, Family Trust. Tax map is 300-106-1-35.1. It's approximately 0.33 acres of land at 96 Bayview Avenue, Amagansett. This public hearing also will be held on November.
This is to adopt it.
I
This is to
apologize.
adopt it.
I apologize. That's what got me thrown off. Let me restart.
It's quite all right.
1314 is Langley authorized a CPF project plan addition and authorize a resolution for the purchase of the property. Purported owners Patricia Langley, Family Trust, tax map 300-106-1 and 13.5, located at 96 Bayview Ave in Amagansett. The purchase price on here.
This is to add it to the project plan. This is, yeah. Adding it.
These resolutions are confusing.
These are
I apologize.
It's quite, don't
This
worry.
is just an, okay, I'll restart.
Been there
Third time's a
myself.
charm.
No, you don't restart. Just, it's to,
Authorize a project plan addition for Langley.
Correct. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We got
Passed and
there.
carried.
All right, here we go.
Now you have
Ready.
the other part of it.
Teeing it up. 1315, Langley authorized a CPF acquisition and amended 2022 management stewardship plan. Again, the property's at 96 Bayview Ave, Amagansett, 0.33 acres. We had the public hearing already. And the purchase price is not to exceed $265,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
2022 1316 is Suffolk County property to authorize a CPF project plan addition. The properties are located at 300-134-1-14 and 300-155-2-6.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1317 is authorized CPF acquisition and amend the 2022 management stewardship plan, again for 86 Two Holes Water Road and 513 Wayne Scott Northwest Road in Wayne Scott. The purchase price is not to exceed $20,509.02.
Bargains. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1318 is Ratty to authorize a CPF acquisition and amend the 2022 management and stewardship plan. Proponent owner is Neil Ratty at 50 and 48 Red Dirt Road in Springs, tax maps 300-103-8-9.5 and 9.6. We recently had the public hearing and the purchase price is not to exceed $3 million.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1319 is a budget modification for recreation, bringing from part-time salaries, $3,850 to budget lines for telephone, $350, other equipment for $3,000, and subcontractor costs for $500.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 500.
1320 is a budget modification for the highway department, bringing $1,000 for highway striping to $1,000 for signs.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
1321 is a budget modification for highway department. Total amount for the budget modifications from the various lines is $114,000, bringing it to two other lines in the same amount, totaling $114,000 in the amount specified.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
1322 is a budget modification for buildings and grounds, bringing $1,300 for common charges and $1,700 for contingencies, bringing it to $3,000 for light and power.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carried.
1323 is to establish an honorary parking program for veterans and active duty military at certain designated facilities and locations. These locations being the East Hampton Town parking lot, Atlantic Avenue Beach parking lot, Amagansett Municipal parking lot, Lieutenant Lee A. Hayes Youth Park parking lot, and municipal parking lot on north side of Main Street. Small talk.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
1324 is to authorize CPF Water Quality Awards for Round 2 for 2022. The Town Board held this public hearing on October 20th of 2022. The two projects that we are recommending here is for DALP LLC. This is the Gansett Snuggery. The funding award amount is $23,750. The second project is the Village of Sag Harbor. That was the project sponsor. This is installation of phase 1 of sewer piping, and the funding award is $1,002,523.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
1325 is a notice of bidders for EH 22039. This is for Lions Field IA sanitary system. The bid is available November 3rd, 2022, and due back on December 1st, 2022. If anyone has any questions, please contact our purchasing department at 631-324-4183.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carried.
1326 is a notice of bidders for EH 22041. This is for the purchase and delivery of ATV. The bid is available November 10th, 2022. Bid is due back November 21st, 2022. Any questions, please contact our purchasing department at 631-324-4183.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
1327 is to retain LK McLean Associates for professional engineering services for the Stephen Hands Path drainage improvements, construction inspection and administration, where LK McLean Associates has submitted a revised proposal to the town of East Hampton dated September 28th, 2022. The total amount for these services is not to exceed the sum of $104,640.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carried. Thanks, David.
Resolution 2022-1328 is KEZLL Grant of a Scenic and Conservation Easement to schedule a public hearing. It is for 23 East Lake Drive in Montauk. The reviewing agency is the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the public hearing would be on Thursday, November 17th at 11 a.m. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
Resolution 2022-1329 is Drucker Grant of a Scenic and Conservation Easement. This is a notice of public hearing, again for Thursday, November 17th, 2022 at 11 a.m. This grantor is Pamela Drucker, Scenic and Conservation Easement. It is at 836 Springs Fireplace Road in Springs, and the reviewing agency is the Zoning Board of Appeals. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
Resolution 1330 is a notice of public hearing to amend UR map AM-1. Whereas a modification to the town's urban renewal plan have been proposed, whereas the town acquired a portion of the existing UR parcel number 25 in AM-1 by way of funds which do not allow the town to transfer any interest in the property, and whereas the applicant is the owner of the remaining portion of the existing UR parcel 25 and is seeking a modification to amend the urban renewal map to allow the applicant to utilize the remaining portion as a building lot. The proposal has been reviewed by the town planning board and by memorandum dated June 15th, 2022. The planning board has recommended against the modification, noting development on wetland and wetland adjacent properties is counterintuitive to the aims of the planning board, especially given the property's location and FEMA flood zone AE 10. Now therefore be resolved that we will still have a public hearing on December 15th, 2022 at 11 a.m. The map number is 300-106-1-4, and this is trying to move lot 61 to 67 and changing them out for 61 to 63, but that's property owned by the town of East Hampton. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
Yeah. Okay. Did I give the date of the?
Yeah, December 15th.
Yeah, okay, I did. Thank you. Resolution 2022-1331 is a notice of public hearing to amend the UR map EH3 urban renewal parcels 55 and 56. Urban renewal parcels 55 and 56 are in map, I think I've already read that, EH3. The town's consulting engineer has reviewed the proposed amendment and has recommended that the application be approved. The proposed amendment has also been recommended by January 31st, the approval proposed modification, and the town board will hold the public hearing on December the 1st at 2 p.m.
Second, sorry.
Well, this is for 15 Abrams Path in East Hampton, sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass carried.
Resolution 1332 is to accept a road widening easement, urban renewal parcel 14 in EH3. This is, the grantor is the Alexander Van Gerp, and the address is 29 Bayview Avenue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a roll call on this, if you don't mind?
Sure. Roll call, please, Carol.
I guess, can I ask a discussion first? Can I get a
that would
discussion
be good.
first?
Yes.
One of the speakers today stated that there might be DEC permitting issues on this. So before proceeding, I wouldn't mind hearing from the DEC on those if it is within DEC jurisdiction and needs for permitting.
Is that EH3? I thought that was another.
This is 29 Bayview.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it EH3 or is it?
This is,
There's more than one Bayview.
this is also just a road widening easement. Doesn't require them to do any work there, just to grant it to the town so that it's sufficient width for the town to take the road over at some future
And
point.
this is Bayview Amagansett or Bayview East Hampton?
This is East Hampton.
I apologize. Okay, you move forward.
The other one is the AM one map.
Do I have a
Yeah,
second?
A1. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass carried. That's something we should probably look at too.
The different Bayviews.
Yeah.
Yeah, the names. I think there's three.
Resolution 1333 is a budget mod for sanitation. The sanitation recycling facility has experienced an increased use this year, which has resulted in increased cost to haul away the solid waste materials, in addition to increased fuel costs, and will exceed those amounts that were budgeted. Now, therefore, the town board directs the budget office to make the following budget modification with the balance of the funds to be appropriated first from the sanitation line, which is for $516,000. Then from budget line, moving $150,000 for full-time salaries. Contingency is $5,000. Household hazardous waste, $5,000, and health insurance, $40,000, for a sum total of subcontractor cost to be $585,000. Fuel for motor vehicles at $116,000, and general repairs in $15,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass
And-
carried.
I have 2022-1334 to offer. This is to authorize oyster reef pilot on town-owned bottomlands at Lake Montauk. This is whereas Cornell Cooperative Extension of Suffolk County, through the Back to the Bays program, has requested permission from the town of East Hampton to investigate the feasibility of an oyster reef in Lake Montauk through a pilot program. And whereas the Spat on Shell Oyster Reef pilot project is part of a larger effort for long-term restoration of aquatic habitat in Lake Montauk, which has benefits for both coastal resiliency and for water quality improvement. CCE is requesting permission to complete a shoreline restoration planting of spat on shell oysters on town-owned bottomlands in Lake Montauk off East Lake Drive, tax map 322-6, and has asked for a letter of support from the town of East Hampton to supplement a permit application to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Therefore, be it resolved that Cornell Cooperative Extension is granted permission to complete a spat on shell oyster planting on town-owned parcel in Lake Montauk, and resolved that the town supervisor is authorized to execute a letter of support for the project on behalf of the town of East Hampton to be submitted to the NYSDEC. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried. 1335 is a notice of public hearing and scenic. public hearing and scenic public hearing declaration of scenic and conservation covenants and restrictions for Jeannot Family LLC and Jed Weinsberg, November 17th, 2022 at 11 a.m. or soon thereafter as the matter may be heard.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed carried. 1336 is amendment to agreement T-Mobile Northeast LLC 411 Wainscott Northwest Road. And this would be for license agreement, 5-year terms, five successive 5-year terms at a initial monthly rate of $4,250 per month with 2% rent over each immediate preceding year. And do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed carried. 1337 is a budget modification for the finance department that is moving $9,800 for full-time salaries to $7,000 in overtime and $2,800 in advertising.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed carried. 1338 is a budget modification for the building department, and that is moving from travel, conferences, and dues in the amount of $1,400 and computer software in the amount of $4,000 to uniforms in the amount of $1,400 and computer equipment in the amount of $4,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 1339 is a budget modification, purchasing department, moving $300 from travel and conference and dues to $300 in office expense in the same.
Second.
And resolution 1340.
You didn't, I just seconded.
Sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 1340 is to approve Promised Land Fire Protection District Agreement for 2023. Resolve that payment of $590,849.09 will be made for such services for the 12-month period of 2023 from the appropriate budget amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed carried. 1341, notice of bidders bid EH 22-040, communications building roof. The bid is available November 3rd and the bid is due back on December 1st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 1342 is a payout upon retirement, Dave Martin. And that will be for $8,373.54 sick time, $437.47 personal time, $785.02 plus $8,436.33 in holiday pay and $7,181.34 for shift differential, less $146.15 in prorated clothing allowance for a gross total of $75,067.55.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed carried. Resolution 1343 is rental registry fee, whereas the rental registry fee was renewed for the rent of a residence premises situated 35 Springs Fireplace Road on or about March 14th. And then again, the fee of $100 was received and processed a second time on April 1st. Therefore, we're going to issue a check and $100 reimbursement to rental registry number 22-342.
Second.
Morris Weintraub.
Sorry. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. There are some additional resolutions. Kathy, I think you have the first.
I do 2022-1344. It's to schedule a special meeting on Monday, November 14th at 12 noon in the Town Hall meeting room for the purpose of an executive session to discuss the East Hampton Airport.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1345 is amend resolution 2022 for 810 Highland Meadows acquisition tax map 300-20-3-3, 18.8 acres of land at 66 East Lake Drive, purchase price of $4.25 million. And this will be for general municipal funds and other funding sources for purposes of preservation, open space, and water quality.
Second.
All in favor?
Can we have just a discussion on this?
Absolutely.
With this property right now, it's being determined for me to have the most flexibility of future use of the needs of this property that I would agree to move forward with changing the funding line on there also. I think the end result is going to be the same on this property as it would be for preservation. Personally, I wouldn't mind seeing it for, if you could, maybe a level of affordable housing, but I agree with the board by doing preservation. I don't know if there's any other comments.
Well, I would just state that, as was noted here earlier in the meeting, that this purchase, with this method of purchase, leaves the board with the greatest flexibility. It's unknown to us what the final disposition of this property will be. What we are certain of is that it will be preserved in perpetuity, and that this property, which we had set to close on very shortly, will provide 18 acres immediately in proximity to the southern end of Lake Montauk, and thereby preventing it future development on that site. That we have certain water quality improvement aspects for the lake, protecting the lake. It also is bordered by Suffolk County parkland. So again, preserving this in this area, I think is a really great purchase. 18 acres for $4.25 million is, I think, a very good deal for the community. And I look forward to voting in the affirmative.
I agree with Peter.
So we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried.
I apologize. I have the next one. Yes,
Yeah.
1346 is a budget modification for recreation, bringing in the amount for boat maintenance and the amount of $1,695 to the same amount for boats and to the line for boats in the same amount of $1,695.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 1347 is to accept aircraft noise easement. We had the public hearing today, and this is for Isaac Tucci as manager of Brooklyn Timber LLC aircraft noise easement at 23 4th Avenue in East Hampton. The reviewing agency is the planning board.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Resolution 1348 is memorializing resolution for a small business Saturday. I brought this up in the work session on Tuesday, whereas Small Business Saturday is an American shopping holiday held on Saturday after Thanksgiving during one of the busiest shopping seasons of the year. And whereas Small Business Saturday is counterpart to Black Friday and Cyber Monday, which feature big box retail and e-commerce stores respectively. And by contrast, encourages holiday shoppers to patronize brick and mortar businesses that are small and local, whereas local shops and businesses exert a very strong and positive influence on the economy and such social development and character of our community while representing a majority of employees in the private sector. Therefore, be it resolved that the town board hereby proclaims Saturday following Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday in recognition to the critical role small local businesses play in East Hampton economy and community. And we encourage all residents to visit local shops.
Second.
All in
And the
favor?
business committee also thanks you for this.
My pleasure. And we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 1349. This is the Department of the Supervisor authorized expenditure for refreshments for a special town board meeting that will be held on November 14th at noon. And the board authorized the expenditure not to exceed $300.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. I believe that concludes resolutions. Is there any other matter to bring before the
If I
board?
could just, let everybody know once again that this Saturday is Drug Take Back Day, and that's Saturday, November 5th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. here in the town hall parking lot. We're accepting prescription and over-the-counter medications and medications for household pets. Unfortunately, we can't take needles or other sharps, business professional waste, or any liquid medications. So
And while you're here at Town Hall doing that, concurrently, there will be the installation preparation stage of the East Hampton Pollinator Garden, which is a partnership between Change Hampton and the town of East Hampton, right outside Town Hall. So you're welcome to come and give us a hand. It's from 10 to 2. There'll be a number of high school kids and other community members that will be helping to do that. I think there are also a couple of trees that are getting planted as well that day.
Oh, nice. And don't forget to stop throwing out pollutants. That also takes place at the Montauk Recycling Center. So clean out your garage. Beautiful weather today. And on Saturday, take it to the Montauk Recycling Center between 9 and 2 so that we can make sure that we keep our aquifer clean.
Thank you. Any other things to bring before the board? I do not. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to close.
Are you going to have
Going
exec?
into exec.
I don't have the list. I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel, get advice of counsel, and discuss contracts.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Okay. Let's see, it is already 4:00. Shall we just go immediately to?
Yep.
And I'll send the link. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.